We see enough and more debaters, but the quality of the conversations, the quality of the debates, arguments, preparation, all the hard work that you put in really impressed us. So I must congratulate all of you for making it. It is a big achievement. You will be able to talk about it. You will see your growth with it. I'm once again, like I said, I'm super proud of all of you, right? We know that we have a tight schedule right now. We have a tight schedule because we are going to start playing the matches from 31st of October onwards, right? Everybody is very clear. In this 1 hour, because all the grade groups are together, what we will do is we will have your lead trainer talk to you about the format, what you should not do, and any logistics issues, like the way Yugveer was raising, which was that, my team was so, and this, I got a call, all individual issues, all logistics issues, schedule kab hoga, how should I reach my team member? We will take it after the agenda of the call, okay? Because it's very, very important for us to train you, but at the same time, we want to talk to you. So we will talk to you separately. We've created some breakout rooms for that, right? Before I get started, I just want to show you the last year's Indian Debating League. So Nitiksha ma'am, if you can just move forward once. And I want to share with you that if you must say something in the middle of the call, just use a chat. I just want to show you, this is the last year's Indian Debating League for all of you who are coming and joining us for the first time. Some of you I recognize, but we were covered greatly in the media and the press for having created the largest ones. But I do want to show you the team Maharashtra, and that is Leshel. Leshel, have you joined the call now? I think she's not on the call today, but she's again made it to Team Maharashtra. The point I'm making is that she really brightened up this. Some of the teams really brightened up the screens. They created the backdrops for themselves, right? They created the excitement of representing their team. And, you completely have the opportunity, apart from the arguments that you put forth, to create your creative juices flowing as well. So feel free. Devika ma'am is going to be able to help you on that, right? Okay, so with that, we have a tight hour. We've got 69 folks coming in. Kian, I will come to you. Here's my suggestion, that allow us to take you through the agenda, because all the questions that you can possibly have, we've already made a presentation on that. And obviously we are recording it for your team members who have not joined us. So in case they are missing it, it will be recorded, it will be shared, but you must discuss it, right? No, not in the middle. Wait, hold on. So here is my suggestion. I'm deliberately not listening to your questions because I want you to go over this agenda and then ask me questions. So the way Nitiksha ma'am is going to do this is, she's going to share something with you and then ask you, do you have a doubt, right? I would really appreciate if you ask the question then. Does that work for all of you? Can you give me a thumbs up if that works for you? Otherwise, I will just pause the call. Yeah?
Yes, sir.
I love it. Thank you so much. You all are so supportive and so mature. This is much better than a lot of elder audience that I normally interact with. Thank you for understanding that we've got a quick hour. We are 4 minutes into the call. 74 people may come in, which means that we are still missing 16 people. If your teammates are not here, please get them on. Devika, kindly make notes of all the thumbs that are up.
Yeah, sure thing.
And post this call, I want them called. They should be getting in touch with each other positively by 8 p.m. max. I think I see only few thumbs, so I'm glad to hear that. So let me please introduce to you Nitiksha ma'am, who's going to be your lead trainer today, and Afreen ma'am. Nitiksha ma'am has been the adjudicator for many tournaments. She has trained our students for NSDA, Doxy Bridge. I mean, the latest was that, we had done a lot of international other tournaments, from Sianspo to ISDS tournaments as well. And, I mean, the children who know her for having helped them break many tournaments. So you guys couldn't have been luckier. Nitiksha ma'am, with that, I will hand it over to you. But I'd like you to go slowly now, because I've been speaking very fast, right? Just go slowly. Take the time to explain to them the agenda that you have. And for any doubts that they will have, they can go back to their breakout rooms after the call, which will be grade wise, right? Over to you, Nitiksha ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. First of all, massive congratulations on making it through to the state rounds. And it is some big feat. There were a lot of competitors, and there were a lot of states, and not all states have made it to the breaks. So congratulations for that, first of all. As far as the flow of the session is concerned, I think a lot has been made clear, but for me to just reiterate it once again, first of all, we'd be talking about the format. And when I say the format, it's particularly with reference to the state rounds, which will be happening now. So like you had a format for the qualifiers, you have now a different format for the state rounds, which I will be talking about, like from the big things to the nitty-gritties out and out in this particular training session. After which we will move on to the format structure and details, which means timings, POIs, interjections, how does this function? Because there are some variations across categories. Those are things that I'm going to clarify for you once the format in and of itself is understood. Followed by that are POIs, which is just like basically short for points of information, or simply you could refer to them as interjections, just questions you ask the other debaters, the people who are your opponents in a debate, is what interjections or POIs refer to. Just a second. Yeah. Then we'll move on to the tips and tricks as to how to go about preparing on a motion, how to go about dissecting a theme, much of which had been discussed for the qualifiers, and by and large remains the same insofar as the tips for research, etc., are just the same, just the topic, the themes change. So we'll be discussing the theme which has been set for the state rounds and how to go about researching on that particular theme as opposed to the one that you had for the qualifiers, and perhaps a few tips on preparation because the format changes. So the way you're going to prepare for it changes a little bit as well. Other than that, then, the second last thing that is up for discussion today is the adjudication criteria, as in the parameters based on which you'd be marked. So these are things that you should keep in mind when you're drafting your speeches, when you're delivering them, whenever you're articulating a POI, so on and so forth. Other than that, we've got speaker roles, which is just basically a part of the format. So first, allow me to explain the format to you. Only then will I come to the speaker roles, because that's a more conducive way of doing this.
Yes, Sharmila, you have your hand up.
Ma'am, so like it's actually explaining how we can win the rounds.
Yes, yes. And now I don't want you all to ask the doubts unless you've heard us clearly. Trust me, we have catered for everybody who's joining in. So hear her carefully first, okay?
Okay.
Don't raise your hands at all because you will have a separate section for 4th to 6th children who are still have doubts, okay? So we will come and ask you after half an hour, which is at around 6:38, that Sharmila and everybody who's from the 4th to 6th category, why don't you go to another room? Okay, right now just let's listen to ma'am. Yes, ma'am, please carry on.
All right, then, schedule for the tournament as to how we'll be going about things from like hereafter, from today onwards. So right now is what you're having is orientation come training day, which is like your first training day. Today we'll be discussing the fundamentals of APD. APD stands for Asian Parliamentary Debate, which is the format that we will be practicing for the state rounds. I will explain everything about APDs. You're not supposed to know anything about APDs, so relax. Other than that, the research tips, like I already mentioned, and then the adjudication parameters, again, something that I already mentioned. On the 29th of October, we'd be covering some newer things like types of arguments that are there in APD format, what are the speaker roles, and collective case prep, as in some practice sessions where we can collectively come together and think about how arguments could be constructed from a particular side on a motion. Then from 31st October onwards, begin your tournament matches, right? Where you'd be, your state would be posited against the others, and you'll be just fighting it out for like the higher rounds until the 2nd of November.
Yeah,
So
just want to make sure that Nitiksha, they also have a sense of the timing. So if you can just tell us the timing on 28th, 29th, then they will block out their calendars to this.
right. Okay. So for the senior category, you recommended to join shop at like 5:55 at least, because it will, Afreen ma'am will be taking your session tomorrow at 6 p.m. And it's an hour-long session, which means 6 to 7 p.m. But for the senior category, we have another session. And senior category is just basically also the middle category. 7 to 12 is what I'm referring to when I say senior for this particular, in this context. Your training will happen from 8 to 9. So please join at around 7:55. I hope that's clear. So 5:55 p.m. is when you should join your Zoom call if you are the junior category, 4 to 6. If you are 7 to 12, please join positively by 7:55 or 8 at max, because I will begin and an hour is not enough to cover everything if we don't begin on time. Okay, with that out of the way, onto the theme. Now, like for the qualifiers, we had the theme of cultural reimaginings, and I had explained in detail what it involved. Likewise, for the interstate matches, we have aspirational India as our theme. So, can anyone take a guess as to what aspiration means? Can anybody take a random guess, even if you don't exactly know the meaning of the word?
Dreams, wishes, or goals.
Okay,
Goal.
perfect.
It's a goal.
A goal. Yeah, all right. Any other interpretation of what aspiration might mean in this context?
An ambition of trying to achieve something or like a passion or something.
Okay, I think I have the keywords I was looking for. So, Aspiration India is just basically about setting certain goals for ourselves as a country, which we are to achieve in order to become a nation which is great and worthy of respect and always forward looking, right? To be a progressive nation, what are the things that we need to do? Now, this is focalized more on conflict resolution, right? So, when you have been given different states, you are expected to not just cater to your own state, but think about it as a process wherein you try to resolve the existing conflicts. Now, these conflicts could be in multiple dimensions, which is where sub themes become relevant. So, if the theme is aspirational India, and aspiration, as you all already know, is just setting us objectives for ourselves to accomplish, there are certain things I mean, objective isn't just one, right? It's based on which walk of life I'm referring to. For example, I have an objective to study hard, but I also have an objective to like be good in sports or any other thing that I do in life. Likewise, a country has multiple dimensions. So you don't want to do well in one dimension, you want to do well in multiple dimensions, which is where your sub themes come in, right? So we will be setting aspirations through the motions, but in different areas, which like involves a national level participation or like a state level participation. For example, education being the first one. How do we make education better in different states, right? Or which states need a certain scrutiny in terms of their education system, and how many which states need funding, etc., etc. Those kinds of topics. Then we'll discuss poverty, as to which states need that kind of an assistance in order to like just be able to escape a culture of poverty if that's what's pervasive in those states, etc. And then about tourism, as to how, I mean, of course, India is known for its culture, heritage, diversity, which is where tourism also becomes very relevant. So that in terms of what kind of tourism does each state possess, and does it ever conflict with each other? Are there things that we need to be uh, thoughtful about even when we're considering tourism? How should we monitor ourselves as a country which is very rich in tourist places, and so on and so forth? Other than that,
Yeah.
what are
So,
yeah.
Nitisha ma'am, just one thing. So all of you, obviously, these are themes that she's sharing, but your motion will come out of one or two of them, and she will tell you when you will get your topics, right? It's in the next slide. Just one thing that Sambhav and Priyanka are asking, the matches will be planned from 4:30 onwards. So Nitisha, if you can just go back to the earlier slide and just reconfirm the timings that I've stated over there, the earlier one. Yeah, okay, so it's not loaded here, but it's going to be from 4:30 to 8:30. Okay, that's the match schedule. So we do want to make sure that you please keep those timings free over here as you plan for the match representation. Over to you, Nitisha.
All right, thank you. I think everybody understands how sub themes work, right? Like it's not that you have to study about each and everything. It's just me setting the framework for what aspiration might mean, because aspiration is a very vague term otherwise, right? It could mean 1,000 things, but this is how you contextualize it, and this is how you give it a framework within which aspirations work. All right. So these are your sub themes. These are probably topics that you'd be discussing. One of them, of course, because you have a round to cover. And then this is the larger theme that we are revolving around. Okay, there's somebody messing up with the screen, which isn't appreciated. Refrain from doing that, and also please.
Please refrain from doing this. Otherwise, you can exit the group, or otherwise, we are happy to get you to exit the group, right? No
It
funny.
might have been a
It's not
mistake.
art class. Yeah. No, not at all. Alrighty.
All right. So now on to the format, and this is something that you really need to listen to like carefully, so that you are not swarming with questions by the time this session is over. Just try to be very, very careful and thoughtful when you're listening to this. So now APD format, for those of you who don't know anything about APD, stands for Asian Parliamentary Debates. This I have already clarified. But this would always have 3 speakers from each side. So if there are 2 sides, there are all like mostly 2 sides apart from VPs, proposition and opposition, or government and opposition, affirmative, negative, however you like to refer to those. Each side would have 3 speakers, all right, and each speaker has their own responsibility in terms of how they're supposed to contribute to the debate and how they're supposed to assist the team in winning the round. Right now, different
Ma'am?
speakers.
Ma'am, I have a question.
I think we're putting the questions in the chat for the time being. Also, once I cover this up, like cover the entire format, I'll take questions. Don't worry. All right. Okay, I'll take that for a yes. So when we're talking about a team, it will consist of 3 people, right? That's how you've been divided. And each speaker is given a speaker role. I mean, you also are referred to as like the prime minister, if you are the first speaker from the government side, and leader of opposition, if you are the first speaker from the opposition side. So let me clarify who is who in that case, right? Listen to this carefully. All right. So this is proposition, which is also your government, affirmative, which however you like to refer to this. So the first speaker from proposition will be PM, and the second speaker from the first speaker from opposition then will be LO, which is leader of opposition. All right. The second speaker from proposition then is DPM, the deputy prime minister, and the second speaker from opposition is DLO, as simple as that, deputy leader of opposition. All right. The third speaker then is called the government whip, and the third speaker from the opposition side is called the opposition whip. So it's pretty simple, right? You have the prime minister from the government, then the deputy prime minister, then the government whip, and from the opposition, you first have the leader of opposition, then you have the deputy leader of opposition, and then you have the opposition whip. To basically explain this format, even if you don't concern yourself with these fancy terms, all you need to know is that first speaker from my team sets the debate. I carry that forward in the DPM speech, right? I try to substantiate it. And then in the third speech, I try to compare my case with the other side's case in order to see how I win this debate despite what the other side is saying against my case. That's basically the gist of this particular format. The niceties I'll get into later, but so far, if there are any questions, I'd have you raise your hands, but like, don't just unmute yourself and start speaking. Okay, Team Telangana, somebody from Team Telangana has a hand raised. I am not sure how to pronounce your name.
Ammon. My name is pronounced as Ammon. I had a clarification regarding the format.
Okay.
When we essentially say Asian parliamentary, is that the Cambridge style debate, which has 3 speakers? One who introduces the motions,
All right.
one
So
who
my
does the
recommendation
argument.
is this: do not refer to any other format because it's likely to confuse other people in the debate, in the meeting, right?
Mhm.
Do not know what the Cambridge style of debating stands for. So let's just look at this format as it is and is being projected right here on the slides, because this really doesn't need a referent. Does that help?
Yeah, just another one, another doubt as well. Could we just get a brief overview of the format before we go on to other themes so that we could just recall everything?
Yeah, definitely. We'll be covering everything. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Gia.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering, the third speaker for both the teams, is it basically the rebuttal speaker?
Not
Are
really.
they-
Rebuttals happen throughout the 3 speeches. There are different responsibilities that are put on you as a certain speaker in the team, which I'll be talking about tomorrow. So this is a question that is
Sure.
better answered tomorrow. Yeah. Rishan?
So I actually have 2 questions. My first one being, so like in a usual Asian parliamentary format, there's also a reply speaker for both teams. That's usually the first speaker, the second speaker. So will that also be happening here?
Yes, reply speeches will happen. This was just to give you a framework of things like the main speakers. Reply speeches will happen, but that's not a new speaker, right? It's one of these speakers.
And I
So
have another
DPM could
question.
be a reply speaker or the LO could be a reply speaker. It's not a fourth new person as such.
And I have another question. when will we receive the motion in our opponent inside?
That I'll come to shortly. It's the next slide or the one after that. It'll be covered.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ahana,
Ma'am, how many matches are there?
there's only one match that you're supposed to be a part of.
Okay.
All right.
Ma'am,
Ma'am,
No, I'm picking names.
ma'am,
Arunode. No. Arunode. Let's have their question first.
Yes. So I'm asking that will you decide who will go first and who will go last? Or our team can decide who can go first and who can go last.
Okay, so this liberty lies with the team. You get to decide who will go as which speaker amongst yourselves.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yugbir.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, my doubt was what will be the format of the reply speech?
There's no format that I can discuss at the moment, but I'll tell you what a reply speech entails tomorrow.
Ma'am, like suppose the first speaker spoke, then does the team from the opposition, the first speaker has to give the reply speech?
I think this discussion needs to be pursued in a structured way, which we will be doing tomorrow. Right now, it's not going to make a lot of sense if I just throw around random terms to you. So preserve this question. Ask me this tomorrow if it's still unclear.
Okay, ma'am.
All right, Anaga.
Ma'am, my doubt is, will the proposition team complete first and then the opposition team moves on? Or is it proposition then opposition?
Okay, if you look at the figure, it makes it clear that it's always going to be alternative, right? So if one person from proposition has spoken, it's now the other team's chance to send a speaker. And once that other speaker has spoken, it's back to the proposition team.
Okay, ma'am, and I have another doubt.
Yeah.
Ma'am, so if there's the Prime Minister, will the opposition speaker oppose what the Prime Minister says or set the stage?
The leader of opposition, you mean?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, they will. Yeah.
So will they do a reply speech or will they set the stage?
No, leader of opposition will give a first speech. Reply speech is different. Reply speech happens only after the first three speeches are complete from each side.
Okay, ma'am. So after everything, the rebuttals will happen.
True, that's true. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So replies happen here. This is where replies come in later.
Okay.
Okay. Aviril.
Ma'am, so like since there are three speakers, so can the two of them be also giving the reply at the same time?
Yes. Okay, so this needs to be understood. This speaker, which is the government whip, and this speaker, they are not allowed to give the reply speech, which means the first two speakers from each side are allowed to give the reply speech. You can decide who you want the reply speaker to be between these two. Is that understood?
Ma'am, so then what is the point of the third speaker? Is he just there to repeat the points that the initial speaker had said?
No, the third speaker has a very integral role in the debate, which I'll be talking about tomorrow, like I said. I don't want any questions on speaker roles because I haven't started explaining them at all. So if you don't know what a prime minister does or what a deputy prime minister does, that's okay. And that's not for you to ask questions about right now because we'll be covering that tomorrow. Okay. Now somebody is joined in through with the name Redmi. I'm sure this is not your name, but the question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, your question.
Ma'am, that we had the power to decide a topic or you can decide.
No, you don't have the power to decide the topic. We'll be giving you the motions.
Ma'am, one more question.
Yeah.
Ma'am, what is the date of the debate?
The debates start from 31st onwards and they'll go until the 2nd of November. So 3 days.
Okay, ma'am, thank you.
You're welcome. Maiman, I'm sorry. I see that you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Okay, I think they're fixing this issue. Advait, meanwhile, we'll take your question.
Yeah, so I'm aware of the Asian parliamentary debate structure. So is it going to be the same 7.5 minutes for each speaker?
No, there are some variations which I will be covering shortly after the questions are done.
Okay.
All right. Kian?
Oh yes, ma'am. Ma'am, so the debate will be from 31st to 2nd of November, 31st October to 2nd of November. So, ma'am, will there be a debate each day or what?
No, you'll be given your own separate day on which you're supposed to be like ready for the debate. So all of that will be taken care of. This particular like hour is not so much to solve the logistical problems as it is to make the trainings part clear, like the understanding of the format clear. So
Ma'am,
ask
so
me questions pertinent to the format for now.
Ma'am, so each team will just have to participate in at least one debate, in only one debate.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Excuse me, ma'am. Actually,
No.
my raise an option is not working. I'm trying for many times. It's
All
not
right.
working.
Okay, we'll have your question in that case.
Yeah, ma'am, will this round be in the online mode or offline?
It's online.
Okay, and will a group be formed of our separate teams?
It has already been shared with you. So if you look at the final,
No, it's the state team group, but our separate state.
oh, that
Like
is
for
your
West
call.
Bengal, a
Okay.
different group.
Yeah, you can coordinate with your teammates however you please. If you want to make a separate WhatsApp group, I think that's recommended.
Okay.
You'll be able to keep tabs
Okay,
on
okay.
each other. Okay,
ma'am. Thank you.
I'll take all the other questions later because I see that these names are repeat names. I've taken at least your question at least once. Abana, I'll take your question.
Yes, I was told that the debates were were offline in Delhi.
That's only for the semis and the finals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. I'll have your question as well.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, my question was the same as Abana.
Okay, perfect. Answered, right? Okay, moving on.
Ma'am, I have a doubt.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, is there like a Pacific? If we go in the semi-finals or finals, if is there like any Pacific wear that we have to wear, like any Pacific T-shirt or like that?
Are you talking about the attire? I'm sorry, I didn't quite get your question. Is there something that you need to wear? Is that what you're asking me?
And ma'am, I'm asking in the semi-finals and finals, we will have to go to Delhi. So, is there like any Pacific where like we have to wear this T-shirt only? We can only wear that color.
No. I think okay. I think we can cover all of those concerns later, right? Let's first get through the state rounds, and once you are coming to Delhi, we'll discuss about that later in a separate meeting. That's due for another orientation altogether. Is that cool, my man? Okay, I'm hoping yes. All right. So now on to the format details. I think a lot of questions were centered around this, so this should help. So as far as this format of APD is concerned for 4th to 6th grade, these are the variations or these are the specific details of your format. Your speeches are going to be 3 minutes long. This takes into account all the speeches that will happen in a round. Okay. So any of the 3 speeches that I just talked about or the reply speech, all of these have the same duration, which is of 3 minutes. Then, okay, there's somebody still scribbling on the screen, which is really not nice and slightly disrespectful. So refrain. Don't underline terms. Adjudicators' feedback will be delivered, which means that the judge who is judging you will give you an oral feedback on why they thought a certain side won the debate. And lastly, the motion release for you all is going to happen 2 days before the tournament, which is basically 29th of October. So that's when you'll be getting your motions. All right. And the stance. Stance is just for or against. So your side and the motion. On to 7th to 9th grades, right? Your speeches will be of a slightly longer duration. Again, it's uniform across speeches. So 4 minutes long speeches for every speaker role. So regardless of which speaker you are, you will speak for only 4 minutes. Adjudicator feedback again will be there. Motion release for you all will happen on 30th of October by around 2 p.m. And there will be POIs or interjections, which means you will be allowed to ask questions to your opponents. But the way POIs are asked is like there's some rules that you need to know, which we'll be discussing in the slides to come. So shouldn't worry about that. Format for 10 to 12 then. The speeches are 6 minutes long. The reply speeches will be slightly of a shorter duration, 4 minutes, but the main three speeches will be 6 minutes long. Your motion release will happen on the day of the tournament itself, just 3 hours prior to the debate, which is 1:30 p.m. exactly. And all the other specifications in terms of oral feedback, in terms of POIs being there, remain the same as it is for the 7th to 9th grades. And like it says here as well, oral adjudication will be given in all 3 rounds. This is extremely bothersome. Whoever is scribbling, your name shows on the screen. It's read me. All right. All right, moving on. Points of information. I'm sure people who don't know about APD format might also not understand how POIs are supposed to be asked in the format. So this should cover for you. So the POIs, the first rule for a POI or a question that I am allowed to ask my opponent. The first thing about that is that it has to be short, because the question that you're asking the other person is eating up the time that the other person has from their speech. So if I am to deliver a 3-minute long speech, your question is a part of that 3 minutes, which means you are wasting my time if your question is more than 15 seconds long. So keep your question very, very short. It should be crisp. Write it down beforehand if you think you're going to mess things up, if you were to ask a question impromptu or without preparation. Secondly, if you ask a question, it can only be offered either after the first minute of a speech or before the last minute of a speech. All right. So like if it's a 3-minute, see, for the POIs are not applicable for 4th to 6th grade. So 4th to 6th grade, you don't even have to listen to this part of the orientation training, right? But this is for 7th to 12th. So your speeches are either going to be 4 minutes long or 6 minutes long, which means I will keep delivering my speech till until my first minute is over, and then I will be able to take questions or POIs. And then in the last minute of my speech, again, people are disallowed from giving me POIs, which means the first and the last minute is protected. In between, people can ask me POIs. All right. Now, the third point is very obvious. It is always offered to speakers on the opposing side. You can't ask your own partner a POI because it simply doesn't make sense. Fourthly, speakers can accept or decline POI. So how do POIs work? I can offer a POI to you if you are my opponent. I can say, I can put it in the chat. I can say, oh, I have a POI, or I can just mention POI from government or opposition. And it's their call if they actually want to take my POI or not. All right, before that, whoever is the host, I think, Devika, if you can help me with this, Redmi is really being bothersome with the scribbles. So if we could do something about that, please. So when you ask a POI, it's not necessary that the other person has to accept this POI. Okay, they can decline it as well, and you have to make peace with it. So don't please nag your opponents just in case they end up not taking your POI. You just have to put it in the chat. If they take it, they take it. If they don't take it, it's their right not to, and they're allowed not to take a POI. So it's no pressure. Other than that, it's even though you're allowed not to take any POIs, it's highly recommended that you still take them if somebody wants to ask you a question. Why? Because it only gives adjudicators the impression of engagement happening, and there is actually engagement happening when you engage with POIs, right? So whatever questions they have, if you choose to answer them, it creates a clarity in the debate which otherwise does not occur. So please be careful about that. All the POIs are not mandatory. They are important in determining the win even sometimes. All right. Teams should also prefer to offer POIs, right? So if you have any immediate questions, clarifications to seek, you can raise POIs. Accepting, not accepting is their choice, but you can definitely try raising them. And every speaker should try to take at least 1 and at most 2 POIs in their speech. Okay. So now the second last point is quite important. In order to maintain the decorum of the room that you're debating in, please respect the speaker's preferred way of receiving POIs. What does this mean? If I say that I will take the POI through chat, it means that my opponent who wants to ask a POI should say POI in the chat and leave it at that. I will look at the chat and say, okay, ask me your POI. Or I will say, I'm not taking the POI. That's my call. But if somebody says that, oh, I won't be looking at the chat because I'm looking at the timer, please unmute yourself after the 3rd minute and ask me your POI. Then you have to verbally unmute yourself and say that you have a POI, but not like naggingly. Just say POI, unmute, say POI. If they say yes, ask the question. If they say no, just mute yourself and go back to listening to them carefully. All right. The last point is exactly about saying, having the liberty to say yes or no, and just basically us not nagging people in the name of POIs. All right. Any questions with reference to POIs will be entertained now. Rishan.
Yes. So will there be POIs for 6th grade to 4th grade?
No, that's exactly what I stated, right? No, there won't be any POIs for 4th to 6th. So I'm not taking questions from 4th to 6th at the moment because this is not relevant to you, the POI part of the orientation. So please refrain from asking any other questions. Team Telangana.
So we will have protected time, right? As in,
Protected time,
I'm
yes.
from grade 9, so I have to speak for 4 minutes. Yes. So the first minute and the last minute of my speech, will it be protected?
Yes, that's right. Advait.
Miss,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat that?
What you said is right. You do have protected time. The first and the last minute, nobody can ask you a POI.
So, Miss, can we address our opposition's points in our speeches, like, or only in the POIs?
No, you can do that both in the speeches and the POI. So POIs are supposed to be complementary and also to deal with immediate clarifications that you might need.
And is there any max limit on the POIs?
There is no max limit, but mostly people don't take more than 2 in a speech. Plus your like the duration of your speeches is very short. So like for a 4-minute long speech, I would be very understanding and ask only, I mean, know that the person can possibly answer only 1 POI in that time. So asking a lot of POIs really doesn't make sense because they can't take so many.
Yeah, I understand. Thanks.
You're welcome, Sudarshan.
Yeah. So if we want to give our POIs through chat, first of all, do we have to give it like through private message or like public to everyone?
Not through private messages. Everything happens on public chat.
Okay, and another question. If the speaker prefers the POIs to be given through chat, can they request the POI, like the people who ask them POIs, to give the whole POI as a question, or do they just have to say POI?
You just have to say POI and then you can unmute and ask if they tell you to.
Okay.
Okay. Grade 10 Karnataka. Okay, now name Sahas.
Yeah. So we can ask POIs about what they're talking right now and what a previous person in their team has said.
I didn't get your question.
So the POIs that we ask, we can ask them questions about what they're currently saying, what the current speaker is saying, and we can ask them questions about what the previous speaker has said.
Yes. Yeah. So I am liable to answer on my partner's behalf as well. So if the PM said something, I'm supposed to back that up as well. So yes, you can ask a question referring to anything that the other side might be pushing, not necessarily that particular speech.
Okay, and can we ask if they've given a statistic, can we question that statistic, or is that not like?
Okay, APTs are not so much about fighting on the objectivity of details. So I would tell you to refrain from doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. Samya?
Yes, ma'am. So my doubt was if we have a question and we want to give a POI about the earlier 1 minute of the speaker's speech, are we only allowed to give the direct, like when someone's saying the sentence, ask a question related to that sentence, or can we ask questions about material that was stated earlier in the speech?
Okay, this is exactly the question I just ended up answering. So please be careful, listeners, not just to your questions, but like other people's questions as well. Yes, you can do that. You can ask questions based on anything that the other side might have said, not necessarily coming from a particular speech. Okay, Samarth.
My question is, can POIs only be asked in the end of the speech, or can they be asked in, between the speech also?
Like I said, you can't ask a POI in the first or the last minute. The time in between is yours to ask a POI in.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Aviral.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask that if we only want to say that, suppose that no, this statement is false. If we only want to say this, should we use a POI for this?
No, POIs are not supposed to be used for making declarations or certain proclamations that you missed in your speeches. That's not what POIs are for. POIs are for directing questions at the other side which you need them to answer. So you are not supposed to give clarifications through this 15 seconds that you get to speak. You are supposed to ask questions in that 15 seconds, otherwise it doesn't count as a relevant interjection. Dia?
Yes, ma'am. So basically, as you said, that the first two speakers will get like a reply time as well. So the POIs can be asked like the speech is going to be divided like 2 minutes pehle your proposition speech and the next 2 minutes your reply speech or something like that.
So reply speeches, I mean, this is something that I need to, again, like I said, speaker roles will be covered tomorrow in detail, because the way you're looking at replies at the moment is not how replies are pursued in the APDs. So they are very like, they're integrated with the argumentation also. It's not like the reply speaker or the reply speech is the only speech that is going to rebut all the points that have come about so far. But it's like more nuanced. We'll do this tomorrow. Otherwise, it'll be a long discussion.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Who else? Priya. Priya Baheti, if I'm pronouncing it right.
Yeah. So I was saying that do we have to like ask the proposition that if they have any POIs once you're done with the first minute and left with the last minute?
You can ask for one. If you think taking a POI might be meaningful, or if you have the time to take a POI, but nobody has raised it so far, you can just ask for one. If they have one, they'll ask you. If they don't, good for you. Rishan, mute yourself. Sahas, your hand is still raised. Is it from the last time, or is there a new question?
Sorry.
That's okay. All right, moving on. Now, on to the research tips, how to go about research. First of all, like I said, APDs are a lot about reasoning and not so much about the statistics you have or the objective data you have on how a certain state fares in a certain walk of life. Like, you don't have to have a lot of data on a lot of things. That's not what this particular debate format calls for. This debate format particularly calls for you to devise your own arguments and to back them up with reasonable explanations of what is happening in the context that your debate is happening in. Which is to say, your understanding of the situation of a country, of a state, whatever you're debating about, and how you integrate it to the immediate issue that you are tackling with is what is relevant in this particular format. So research is very secondary. Mostly you'll be able to think about issues if you just keep in mind simple things like, what do people want? What are governments supposed to do? How is one state supposed to coordinate with the other? What can be the center's role in helping these states coordinate? If you ask yourself those questions, you will have automatic inherent answers. The internet is very scarcely required for a format like this. So please try to put on your own thinking caps and think about the motion the moment you receive it, is my serious recommendation before I go on to the research tips. But even if you have to come to research, because there are certain terms that you perhaps don't understand in the motion, right? Like urban housing or rental caps or what zoning is, those kinds of things. If you want to research about them, fair enough. Go research about that particular term, but don't necessarily start looking for arguments on the internet, because you wouldn't find easy arguments on the internet. Even if you do, these arguments are being researched for by other people as well, which means your arguments have no nuance or no personalization, which might win you the debate if you're taking it from the internet. So really finding arguments from the internet is the last thing you want to do if you want to make it through to the finals, semis and finals. Okay. Now, what are the do's then on how to research? Use reliable site, right? So even if you want to find out about urban housing or some technical term that you haven't been acquainted with so far, you want to go to reliable sites like not Quora or Wikipedia, where people can randomly throw around their opinions of what a certain thing might mean. You want to go to very legitimate sources, and there are some references made like Reuters, Britannica, or even government websites, because we're talking about states. So those are nice sources to get your data from and your understanding from on things. Secondly, research keeping in mind all the possible dimensions of the case. Now, this is very important. Sometimes we tend to stagnate intellectually, on arguments, because we think that, oh, I can't devise any more arguments, but that's probably because you're only looking for arguments in one direction. For example, political. I'm looking for political argument. Whereas if I thought a little bit more about it, then this motion is more relevant from an environmental sense. So maybe I can develop an argument on sustainability and not so much on voting in elections, which is political. So what I'm trying to say here is that always try to think of a case, and case is just basically the arguments put together. When you're trying to make a legitimate, meaningful case, try to think of it from all directions. What are the possible directions that I can dive into in order to come to certain arguments which are new and refreshing? Okay, and then the third point is about the sites you can refer to, which I've already mentioned. Now, what are things that you do not have to do when you're trying to research on certain things? Don't stick to one source of information, right? So if you're finding out about something which is which on which there is a lot of discussion and contention, you might want to switch to different sources. Like I read something from the Mint about a certain water dispute between, say, Haryana and Punjab, and then I'm not sure what the Mint is saying is true. So I probably will switch to a report from the Quint in order to see what are the commonalities based on which I can make a consensus about what actually happened. So I want to refer to multiple sources rather than sticking to one, because sticking to one source might lead to very misleading data and thereby a misleading case. So don't do that. Just refer to multiple sources. That helps evade bias. Secondly, research the background and not the exact arguments. Now, this is what I started this particular slide with. So I don't think I have to repeat this. You cannot research the arguments. Don't act unplay smart and try to just dig up arguments, debate on this motion. No, that's not how it happens. You just have to research the motion, the words you find tricky, certain schemes you don't know about. Those are the things you can research about, not the arguments. And the sites that you need to avoid is what makes the third point: Wikipedia, Quora, any other site with unorganized data or like just opinions, basically. Okay. Now I'll cover this slide as well, and I'll take questions post that, because I don't think the slide before this is calls for a separate Q&A bit. All right, wait. Right. So what are the next steps that you're supposed to do after like all that's happened since yesterday, declaration of results, adding you to the WhatsApp group, this, that? You have to now introduce yourself in the WhatsApp group, which I see a lot of people are already doing, which is nice, because that's how you identify your teammates and reach out to them. Then you try to get to know your team better. You create a WhatsApp group for yourself. I think this was also a question that was asked. Yes, coordinate with each other, coordinate on whichever platform you think you're comfortable on. If you want to have G meets in order to get to know each other better, if you want to have a WhatsApp group, your call, right? Your discretion. Then about the debate format and how topic and stance declaration will happen. I think I've already mentioned this. You can again read it on the slide just so it's crystal clear in your mind. Topic and stance will be given at the same time on 29th October to grade 4 to 6. Grade 7 to 9 will be taken care of on 30th October. Stance will be given on at 4 p.m. on 31st October, so on the day of the tournament. Grade 10th to 12th will have their motions and the stance on the day of the tournament itself, just 3 hours before the tournament, like the debate. will you get the motion, and the stance will be clarified at 4 p.m., just a half an hour before the round starts. Okay. The speaker order, I think this was again another question that was asked. So this is to clarify that you have the liberty to decide which person will go as which speaker based on your ability. Maybe I'm able to define things better, so I'll go as the first speaker, but maybe I have better analysis and understanding of what the other side is saying, in which case I might go as a second speaker. So it's you knowing your teammates and what they do best, and accordingly giving each other like a speaker role preference. Okay, that's how it's going to work. Lastly, criteria for adjudication and what it entails. There are three broad parameters based on which you're judged. One is matter, the other one is manner, and then there's method. Now, what is matter? The actual arguments presented by the speaker. Now, what does this mean? Actual arguments is basically the content. What is the argument that you're proposing? Is it new? Is it copied? Is it from the internet? Or is it some organic thinking that you have done by yourself? Example, facts, studies. I mean, like I said, facts don't matter so much, but yes, reasoning has to be there. Your examples can also, I mean, examples don't always have to be statistics, right? You can also give a hypothetical example of how people generally are in a given state, or of how people generally think as part of India with a national, like with, I mean, people of the same shared culture. How do they think? You can give us a prototype, hypothetical examples. They work in APDs, right? In manner, then you will be judged on the basis of how well you are able to present your speeches, your body language, being on camera, not reading it off of a paper. All of those things would matter. In stable internet connection also happens to become then indirectly important for manner, because if you have an unstable internet connection, then things go all right, because you can't be on camera. It seems like you're reading from the paper, your voice is breaking. You don't want that. Method would include the way you structure your speech. So your arguments could be excellent, but if they're all over the place, I, as an adjudicator, find it hard to understand what you're trying to get at. So please follow a structure. I will also explain in the session to come what a structure looks like, or how you can advisably structure a constructive an argument, although there is no this is not prescriptive. So I will not be prescribing a structure to you, but you can choose to follow it if you like it, if you happen to like it. Okay. So structure is important because that's how you are able to ensure time management as well. Okay. Everything else is for tomorrow. I will take questions now, not on the logistics so much as on the things that are directly relevant to you understanding the format and whatever I talked about in detail just now. Wait. Arav, question please.
Yeah, so my question was that for grades 7 to 9, are we going to get the stance half an hour before our debate?
This for grade 7 to 9, yeah, the stance will be given half an hour if you're not the junior category, half an hour before if you're not the junior category. That exemption is made only for the junior category, where they get it on the day the motion is released.
I had another question. So all the topics we'll get for the debates, are they going to be only related to our state, which we're representing?
Yes, mostly that.
Okay, thank you.
Advait.
Miss, just two things. One, for the manner part, so are you saying that we shouldn't be creating scripts and instead just use like chits?
You can, okay, so you can have notes by your side. That's not what I meant when I said you shouldn't be reading it off a page. It's just that you shouldn't cling to it. So like have several reference, and if you forget in between what you were trying to get at, just quickly glance through it. That's acceptable, but just like sticking to the paper is not. Having an entire script is not.
Another thing for us, the motion will be given one day prior, right?
You'll have to tell me which category you are.
7 to 9.
7 to 9, yes.
One day prior. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Trina?
Yeah, so Miss, my query is scoring related. Will there be team scoring or individual scoring to go to the next round?
There will be team scoring.
Okay.
Ria?
So do in a team, does everyone have to make a reply speech or one particular person?
Only one particular person.
And that will be at the end?
That will be at the end, yes.
So like the last speaker has to say.
Right, right. Okay, you're welcome. Just 1 second. I think grade 4 to 6 are supposed to move to a breakout room now.
Excuse me, ma'am, which room?
Give me 1 second.
Excuse me, ma'am, I had a question.
Yes, please.
Can you please tell us the exact time when our matches will happen? Because I'm pretty busy on the 31st of October, so I need to plan my schedule accordingly.
I can't tell you the exact time right now because the schedule will be shared though. Shortly.
Okay, so when will we be shared the schedule?
By tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I think people are joining their respective breakout rooms.
I had a question, ma'am.
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'll take the question from Gia first. I'm going in a particular order. Gia?
Yeah, ma'am, I had a question very similar to the one just asked, but do we all have our competitions on the 31st?
No, they are divided across 3 days. So it's either 31st, 1st, or 2nd.
And we won't know which day
You will,
it's beforehand, right?
You will tomorrow once the schedule is out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Rishika? Mishra?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to ask, ma'am, if I am saying a reply speech and someone from the opposite team wants to ask a question, has a question, but someone else wants to answer it.
You have a question, but someone else wants to answer it.
Yes, ma'am. So my question, someone else from my team, someone else wants to answer it.
No, they can't. If you are asking a question, it is to destroy or perhaps raise a concern with the other side's team. So if your person answers that question, it doesn't serve the purpose.
Okay.
Okay. Gia, can you lower your hand now?
Yeah, sorry, just a second.
All right, Amen. I think you're the only person left who has a question. And Nishka.
Yeah, I'll just ask mine. We were said that the orientation would be from 6 to 7 p.m. What is the reason for the breakout room?
If you want to get your any questions clarified, then you can switch to those. Only this is only applicable for 4th to 6th grades though. So 4th to 6th grade can join a breakout room. I am dealing with 7th to 12th queries.
Okay, ma'am.
Nishka?
Yes. So I just wanted to ask whether our arguments and our solutions need to pertain to India as a whole or just our particular states?
Sorry, please come again with your question. I was a bit, yeah.
Yeah. So do our arguments and solutions need to pertain to India as a whole or our particular states?
They can refer to India as a whole and they can refer to your particular state. It really depends on the motion that you've been given and the kind of argument you're trying to push. Both of those situations are acceptable though.
Right. Thank you.
I also had a question.
Yeah, I know a couple of you have your hands raised. Please wait. Avni, now that you've unmuted yourself, yes.
Yes, ma'am. So once we have been asked a POI, can we answer to that like after some seconds after the speech is over, maybe?
No, you either take the POI. I mean, once you've taken the POI, you have to respond to it, or you can't just say that, oh, we'll respond to it later because I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. If you, one could say that my DPM would take this forward, but it's advisable that you take a POI when you're sure you'd be able to deliver a convincing response. Aditya?
Ma'am, could you please repeat how long before for 7 to 9 we get our stance?
7th to 9th will get their stands on 31st October, 4 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody's joined in with the name iPhone. You can ask a question.
Ma'am, my question was clarified.
Okay, good. Just lower your hands in that case. Eamon, is it the same with you, or do you have a different question this time around?
I had another question, ma'am.
Okay.
For grades 7 to 9, let's say the first debate is on 31st October. So we get the motion 3 hours before that, or is that just for 10 to 12?
A day before the tournament, if you are 7 to 9.
Okay, yeah, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, Aviral.
Ma'am, so when you said that in manner that their body language matters, so is it on how they use hand gestures, or is it how calm they can remain, or something like that?
Yeah, it's about respectful conduct. It's about sounding confident, articulating well, not hurting sentiments just to win an argument. Those kinds of things matter more. How considerate a debater you are, but also the gesticulations, yes, sure. Advait?
Miss, we can leave now, right?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Join in tomorrow, 7 to 12, 8 to from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. 4 to 6 is supposed to join in from 6 to 7. 4
Yeah,
to
8
6
to
is
9
with Afreen ma'am, and 7 to 12 is with me, Nitiksha. We'll be covering quite a lot of things which are all equally important. Please join on time. Thank you.
Got it, Miss. Thanks.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I had a question.
Yes, please.
Is that so? We said that the schedule for the tournament is from the 31st to 2nd. So will, for example, if my match being on the 2nd, will I have my topic be released on first, or all matches happen on the 31st itself?
No, you will receive your topic on before 31st, regardless of when your match is happening. So a day before the tournament just means before 31st. A day before 31st or 3 hours
So it
before.
doesn't matter on which date my match is.
Doesn't matter really, yeah. Okay, I see no other questions, in which case we can call it a day. Thank you so much for joining in. See you all tomorrow. Bye. Good evening.
Varnika, were you not able to join your breakout room?